Bring crickets. Just on time. Going to have them roll around, roll around, roll around. In a revolutionary year. Nothing's going to change as long as there's the crickets. As long as we think we're doing stuff that's not done right, we're going to have the crickets. And the crickets are going to get stomped on. And there's nothing more I can say to change that. There's nothing that any of our opinions going to change that. It's the way of the world. So welcome behind the woodshed. You too can learn what to do, and then you have to go do it. Is it the answer we have back here? Absolutely not. But it is a experiential thing. Almost everything I tell you we've been done before, or we're doing it, or doing it in elements, and that experience is what I back up what I tell everybody about. Until you roll up your sleeves and get involved, you will certainly cannot appreciate what I'm telling you. A few more people I've been talking to, they're finally seeing it. They finally get involved to really settle down, stop waving their constitutional pamphlet around, and start to actually apply what that book said it was supposed to be doing. Get past how it's being subverted, and get to how it's supposed to work, and then you start seeing it. And so there's just nothing else. I mean, I know lots of people don't want to hear that, but you have to get involved in the right way. And if you don't, it's a bunch of busy work, and that's where they want it. They want us divided and not doing the right thing. And if anybody who's listening to me haven't figured that out, I don't know what to say either. It's just the way that things are. I would have never guessed it myself. I'm really I sit here, the little guy in me just sits here shocked. And I know I'll get maybe a few people in the chat room, well, you shouldn't be shocked. Well, okay, fine. The little guy in me is shocked. You should be shocked too at some level. Still. Now, then we find out the truth and the reality. Now we have to roll up our sleeves. We have to put our big boy and big girl pants or dresses on. I guess I thought we were going to decide it. I said we'll go to all wearing kilts, and then we can be gender neutral. And we have to put our big kilt on here, and we have to do a job. We really do have that job to do. It was no joke. People didn't. I really do not believe that, because I certainly didn't. It doesn't mean it's my lack of awareness early on conveys to everybody, but I don't see and don't know of anybody who really understood what we were being told. You have a republic if you can keep it. I really don't believe people appreciated that. So. And I've, over time, been gaining a better and better and bigger appreciation. You're in international law, and they were telling you we're coming. And if you don't keep what we gave you, another gift, another Trojan horse, essentially, we're going to come and take it from you, beat you up some more. And boy, haven't they. So, again, the people can't look out and see there's a problem, and can't see that waving their pamphlet, their constitutional pamphlet, or saying I have rights, or I'm going to go on this level, I'm going to go to this philosophy. If you can't see none of that is working, and really set back and change how you view the reality that you're up against, and without getting into esoterica, what's real, I mean, please. The reality that's affecting you in the world is what you're up against. You don't get a clear, true analysis of what that is, forget it. Just forget it. And I don't think I'm speaking outside of any rationale there in any regard, on any subject matter. You can't fix a problem if you're not looking at it the right way, or see it the right way, or don't want to look at it, or want to allow yourself to be told things about it. Sweet nices. Oh, look how nice everything is. We're going to help you, do for you. And you say, okay. The little guy in me says, yeah, I'd like to have someone be able to do that. The little guy in me now has gone decades and decades more to find out that those people were probably lying to me, weren't they? And I suspect they've been lying to you. And that was the plan. Lie, 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 deny, deny, deny. Now you see this, I've just defined the Bar Association. It's what they tell all their clients. It's how they respond. Keep your mouth shut. They know about that. You have the right to remain silent. Do so, folks. But then they don't tell you have certain things you can say. I mean, this reminds you, there was one time we were trying to pull some, you think that there's environmental laws and you'd want to keep your rivers clean. We found there was a lot of cars in a river and we went to go pull them out. And so we're in the middle of pulling them all out and the cops show up. Wanted to give us tickets for pulling out the cars. And so I realized the cops aren't there to help you. I knew that. I was well within this mind frame now. And with the full knowledge of I have the right to remain silent, because anything I say can and will be used against me. I spoke to these cops for an hour and 15 minutes. I never really shut up. I let them interject, have their say, and then I gave them an answer. But everything I said was silence against what would make me culpable or liable. What I didn't shut up on was all the things they were wrong in and all where the laws didn't allow it and all the questions that they were making. And they went away eventually. They still didn't like that we were pulling the cars out. And so this world's in a topsy-turvy condition, and you have to not just say that and not just, oh yeah, it's a topsy-turvy. You're going to have to right that ship of state. And then we have to get it underway again. We still have to live amongst ourselves. And running around like a bunch of chickens with our heads cut off isn't going to do it. And before we get there, see, this controlling pressure, this controlling evil that's on us, that we allow at some point. Even if we don't know how to throw it off, we're allowing it. Because we're not working I'm saying in general, we're not working together behind the scenes silently to do what we need to do. And work even despite what we see, which is a conversation I was having yesterday with a colleague. It kind of gave him the next view. How we do what we do is to take the reality and work within those constraints to advance our position, notwithstanding it is against the position of those that are holding you. And doing so in a way that doesn't bring you into jeopardy, no less than I just said, I didn't shut up for an hour and 15 minutes, and I remained silent the entire time. This duality of action is how you have to get into what you're doing. So that requires the action. And it's really not so simple, but it is. Once you get those eyes and you get those ears, there's a whole other world. There's literally a whole other world, let's put it that way. But then there's a way that you can address it. But you're going to be imposed against. I've been trying to go behind the woodshed to tell you all this stuff. So I used to use this the stuff they call the news, that we find, that I tell you it's notice. This is a world of notice of your liabilities. It shows you're in an open air prison just by that alone. But if all they have to do is give you notice. When you read the Libra Code, you find out they don't have to tell you that they're there. That really should have locked onto some people, a lot of people. When I say that, when you go past Article 1 in the Libra Code and you don't think more of it, you've missed the whole game. And what is that, folks? It says right there, martial law is not declared. Let me just put it this way. The military state of oppression and hostility is not declared. Has to be no proclamation. All they have to do is be there. You knows them when you sees them, folks. That's the first rule. You know the conquest. You know the boating conquest. You know the occupation. You know the hostility when they're hostile. They don't have to declare their hostility. And you look in the Libra Code deeply, and you can't even tell. And for those of you that have read it, I'm sure you've sat back and had to think about it. I mean, it has to bear on you if you're actually thinking about this stuff. That you must realize after reading the Libra Code, and not all of it says this, but you'll get this idea after you read it, and you're thinking on each one. You are not able, through looking at what they're doing through the Libra Code, which is international law right now and used, and I'm getting a whole new awareness of that because I've been now working our stuff into that. I'm now having to pick up all the original information that I read, 3 decades ago and now put it into the practice that looked like I was going to when we exhausted every other thing. that you're going to find out that this international reflection is everywhere. This Libra Code's no joke. What they're telling you in that's no joke. That when you look in the Libra Code, you should have come to the realization, and you need to really understand this at a deep level, folks. I mean, really. We hear about all the surveillance and all the deception, and I've been bringing up the deceptive type things and the technology to deceive you. That's also window dressing at some level, because the system already exists. And the Libra Code tells you, when you look into your society, if it is under hostile takeover, you won't see it. That's the job of the occupier, that you don't see it. Everything you see, that's why, and I only can point to it to you when I tell you a long time back about what this as thing is. As money, as law, even as legal, as rules, as authority. That's it. You can't tell, unless you do a lot of deep research, that it sits there, right in your face, looking like it's real. It is real, but not the way they tell and promise to you. You cannot look, if you go look at the Libra Code, it'll tell you, you cannot go into a court of law and know that it is occupied by a military force behind the scenes. You get the little clue with that fringe flag, but don't let's get out wild on all that. That's a one little notice. But it's deeper than that, and you have to have an understanding deeper than that flag, because they've already told themselves, they've already went through all their plans, and they're all meetings right after that started happening in the 90s, for all y'all that think it's happened a big deal now. It was actually happening in the 80s before that. The same nonsense. It's there. And what they did is they decided, we'll just pull the flag out. It won't matter. Our jurisdiction has nothing to do with that flag anyway. If they want to not be notified, that's fine. And so they pulled it out. They pulled out all the trappings. And so they can do anything to secure their invisibility before you. And it should bother you a lot. The way I talk about the protocols of the Elder Design being a manual for your frailties and your exposure to this stuff. And the silent weapons of quiet wars, their place made for you, and you'll plug yourself in. You're plugging yourself in even when you say that you're not, or you're going to avoid it. It's not hard to be plugged in is the other thing. They presume you plugged in. How's that? How easy was that, folks? If you don't get a handle on this thing that we're looking at, in my view, I put it at a very high probability beyond possibility, very high. I put it very high on my category of how I approach the problems. That we are sitting in this military state that you can't see, and their job is being done so well that you can't see it. I'm talking in the general. And even those of us that see it, because had to waste 30 years of our life to look at it. It took us that long looking, folks. They deny it. They don't answer. And so you're always left, the outward view of the herd is, you don't know what you're talking about then. I still can't see it. Again, the microcosm of the minor is the macrocosm we know as America. Our default lawsuit, no one wants to look at that as law, as the exposure of this occupying force. We focused on the Bar Association. It's much bigger, folks. It's much deeper. And I gave a friend of mine a little glimpse of that, and it's pretty devastating at some level. But here I am, folks. I'm here back to talk to you about it, right? I mean, I've known it's been there. This is a pretty interesting observation of reality. There was a question, I don't know if maybe Solviner put it in the FN network over there, Freedom's Network, chat line or whatever they call that stream, the posting stream. Somebody was talking about the reality not being real, and that's the meme that goes out. And he was saying, well, that sounds like doublespeak. And he was, I would say, accurate to some level, but it's not even doublespeak. It's insanity. The first four letters of the word reality are real. It has to be real. And so this is the stuff they put out on us that we absorb that just keeps us all tangled up in the nonsense. And we have no way we then argue about this and that and the other. We're all talking about things like that instead of what I talk about, which is, okay, where's that military jurisdiction that we have to defeat, and how are we going to do that? Now, am I making up that real? I don't know. When I go out in the world and I get treated a certain way, and it's not like anything I was ever told was supposed to be treated, I better start to take I better have the common sense to stop and look at what I was treated and go fit that somewhere. If you're not getting the rights that you thought you were promised, maybe they're not there, and maybe you live in a different world. That's why I say stop flapping your pamphlet. It's not helping you. Your little constitutional pamphlet, not helping you. It could help you, but not by flapping the Constitution, not even by citing out of it. That's the other thing people don't understand about how this really starts to work. And I only know the part that I've been working with that seems to work. I've really been, in a way, I really be careful. I have to be careful. I don't know. Maybe there's other ways. There's just not enough people that I get to talk with to work out what those other ways are. And I'm not talking about the special paper you write. We're not talking about anything like this. We're talking about a way to perceive what we're dealing with and how to address that perception. What I tell you is knowing the battlefield. And in this battlefield is this propaganda war. It's probably the first thing that happens. The information war is the first thing that happens. And it continues, and it really doesn't ever stop. It wants to keep you controlled. It wants to keep your mind controlled, and however it does it. It wants to keep my mind controlled. And that's probably one of the bigger battles all the time to throw off and keep off. Well, I tell you, get your source documents. Get your knowledge. Sit back and think about what you're working with, and then go work with it. And in a way that doesn't jeopardize you. This is a forever war. We were told you have what you've been gave if you can keep it. It's a forever war. And so that's another little clue. Go look for things that are forever in those black and white. Because if you can attach yourself to that and the other party can't touch it, you've got yourself a narrow path. Does it mean that the criminal goes away? Well, that's absolutely not. No, Millie, this is what this facade of even the law of war is. Isn't that a joke? Anything is not going. If you're the power with the power, period, you will not recognize anything. You are a complete despot. And that's a neutral term, despot. We think of it negative, but it's actually both ways. It's an absolute. I'll say the word sovereign actually covers it better. It covers it in jurisdictional fashion, a complete package. If you have a question of it, you're not. It's pretty simple. All this stuff is really straightforward. Why I say don't bring a question, that just shows you don't know. If you don't know, you're not a sovereign. It's pretty simple. And you'll be treated by those that know that. Now you bring what you know, then the only thing you know is what you're putting forth, and it's not a question, and you can tell immediately when someone's trying to buffalo you, do the BS or do the authority on you, and you catch them up on a crime. We're so far down the path, we can't even get the guys that are in authority to be accountable. That's our main problem. We've allowed that. Again, in general, we've allowed it as a people. We've allowed ourselves to be persuaded away. Getting over to where I was so far again off the news, and I should have looked before this. I get into what I'm going to say. It's I'm hoping my audio is going out, and I'm looking at the RLM chat because I need an audio check. I have a new. Last week there was a lot of high pitched sound. I don't know where it came from, so I changed the audio filter, and I've been running on it now for 18 minutes. I hope, and I'm remiss to have not got this out of the way right away. How is the audio? I'm looking at the RLM chat. If you can give me a feedback as an audio check, and it should have no distortion in it. There shouldn't be hardly any noise in it, I would hope. And I want to make this as clean as possible going out. So anyway, I'll have a few minutes. I don't know if I can, if I see much. Excuse me for looking at this stream here. And sorry for the silence. I don't do this multitasking stuff. I don't see the RLM chat working, so maybe there's no one commenting, but maybe I'm not even getting out. Who knows? It's always a neat thing. I couldn't check this before. I don't think I'm getting too. There shouldn't be any tearing or ripping at the top end of I shouldn't be sounding at all dirty near the top, like where it sounds fuzzy. And if it is, I can adjust a little bit of that. But anyway, I'm looking just wasting a little bit of time here to get some time. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to continue with this, and I'll listen to this on the blog when I'm doing the post-production and try to figure out what we have today. I'm hoping I'm hoping that it's a lot better than the other filters I was using, and get rid of some of those other problems. On Spreaker, you get all the raw sound, however good or bad it is, and I don't really appreciate that sound, so I go in and try and clean it up a little bit on the post production. Don't ever take anything out of the content, but I clean up the sound, so it's just easier to listen to. I mean, I can't listen to a noisy broadcast. There's something it's just not wired. I'm not wired to pick up and listen along with that. So I only put that. I ask you to. That's why I'm interested in it. I think the listener is, you have to be able to listen to this. So I'm getting some decent feedback. Thank you. I'll be able to double check everything after. If it's good enough now, I'll just continue. But we live in this battlefield America. They finally admitted to it. We finally got to hear it. All this stuff is just, it's been there all this time is what's another thing that kind of devastated a friend of mine last night. I can go back and point out these little points in history and in law that here it was. They were telling us the whole time, and no one paid attention to that. And then those that came in, when someone started to see it, others jumped in, the disinfo, and started to tear it up and made division. And so we all get lost in this dust that I try not to get lost in. Somehow, I can just tell you, folks, and you'll see this when your mind kicks in correctly. You'll be able to, it's like you get real calm about it. You don't get all into all that. And it's like all of a sudden, after a while, you can't even hear the noise. I mean, not that you can't hear, you can hear it. You don't want to hear it no more, and you just kind of cut it out. It's not the thing you need to hear or do, and it doesn't advance your position to do all this other nonsense. And you'll be, that's why I try to tell you, look through some of this. Start to find that noise out. You have to look through it. So let's get over to this propaganda and what they want you to know, and they telegraph, and the psychological warfare that's against you and all that, to get you to do certain things or not do certain things. And this week we're seeing a lot more of this play out in a few articles and things, and it's also wrapped up. It's a dimensional thing. There's so many important things to know. There's certain dangers. There's certain advantages you get to see. There's certain realities you make. They are real. They're not a question. You don't do that to yourself. You got to set a reality. You have to make that determination on what that is. You can't walk every day in a place that has no foundation. You're in quicksand. You're in a mud bog. You're not going to go far. And someone's going to be moving faster than you, and they're not in that thing. And so you have to, that's your track you make for yourself. You have to prepare the way for yourself. And you have to be able to look at all this nonsense and cut through it and work through that battlefield. And it is a battlefield. I would have never, ever, ever thought that this reality, this thing that actually works in the world, was as comprehensive and as it is. Just leave it that. U.S. says it has unlocked iPhone without Apple. So after all that stuff, the United States now went to Israel. Apparently that's the only brains in the world. It's funny because when I was in electronics as a research, I was in a technician in research and development. All the technology was in the valley I was in while I was doing that. All the stuff that was new and developing was where in the valley I was in. All that apparently now gets diverted to Israel. Do you realize how much economy is being lost in this country because they're doing that to start with? That the FBI goes there instead of somewhere in the United States? Has to tell you the global nature of the oppression and the global nature of the military consequence. Apple didn't, that was a false fight. They know it. They all know this. U.S. says it has unlocked the iPhone. Fine. Now what? So now you've understood now that these things can be unlocked, if you ever had a thought otherwise, that this is another tool in the silent weapons quiet wars scenario that they were getting you to buy into as we talked about it. Apple needed to make a false front face that they were trying to resist so you didn't know they're involved with it. And that they won't come to your country, the United States of America, where Apple is, to get the answer by their own technicians. They won't pay you. There's a lot in these articles that I just kind of go off on a little bit in my mind, but I really don't want to discuss it to more than to point your mind to what they're doing with it. This is all just a military maneuver in your face. They put you big threat, but here's the underlying theme I want you to start hearing. This is where they disclose this stuff to you. And they do it for a couple of reasons. One is once you hear it, most likely you're going to go to sleep on it. That's the first thing they want. Number one. Number two is when you hear it, now you're going to start to wonder about you, like I do. I think about what am I sending out and what it might be perceived and what's going to happen. I don't do nothing. I just don't send a hi there email when I send my stuff out usually. We're doing some very serious stuff against some very serious condition. I need to be cognizant of what this is, whether or not I can absolutely do anything more about it. And I've found out over the last 10 years that intelligence is critical to understand. You have to understand what the other side might be able to do or not do, will do, is willing to do, won't do. That's the really big one to find out if you can do that. So this is a big facade. They try to get Apple the big hero. I'm defending our rights against my users because they don't want to lose. See, the bottom line is the bottom line. They can't have Apple losing money. This is the biggest, most, what do you call it? The most wealthiest, if I can say wealthy in a credit debt system world. The most wealthy corporation, I think, in the world is Apple, I think. If not, they're right at the top. They can't have the bottom line affected. And so somehow, I don't know whether by hook, by crook, by agreement, just by the way it plays out, this thing is up against you. That they make Apple like the white knight while the FBI turns out to be someone that's the bad guy, and then they can find out they didn't need to even do what they did. But the whole message is they can do it. Your technology is the trap. FBI resist call to reveal Tor hacking secrets. Here it is. They're going to put it on you that you're going to stifle your communication. They're going to make you wary, excuse me. I think it'll make you weary too, but wary. They're not going to, they've agreed now that we now find out for sure they can hack that. And in this story that I have, you need to read the stuff of how they do this to find out the specter of what's going on. Can they really do it? I don't even really know that. See, this is the psychological warfare. So, but you have to know, for those of you that are making plans in the future on doing things that you want separate. It doesn't have to be unlawful. It just has to be separate. They don't even like that. This is the whole point about this. We don't have to be doing nefarious things through Tor. I just don't want someone peeping in on what I'm doing with helping people. See, they fabricate these things to begin with, so I don't want to give them anything for myself. I don't know about you all. Thank you for the audio check, Chalcedony. I appreciate that. It's still working, I guess. That's a good thing. So now they revealed the Tor, the onion router circuitry, which I mean, we can go through all the discussion. Oh yeah, the NSA has half the routers and all that. We can do all that. The point is I'm trying to tell you that what they do is it's a psychological pressure on you to not become active, and then I say in the proper ways, even and despite this thing. Let's say, see, as I told my friend yesterday, I look at the worst case scenario oppression, and I deal with that as I decide what to do when we move forward. The reason why I do that, because I don't want to be caught by surprise. We can always be caught surprised by what we didn't know, but I don't want to be underestimating the very big potential and probability that it is that bad. If I've covered for that, then I've probably covered for all the other things, and those don't even really become, except for maybe a special nuance within a certain exposure and vulnerability, it really doesn't rise to the level that the major problem happens. And this is how I approach all of these things that we do. I attempt to look at the worst case scenario. I don't buy into that myself. I don't say, I don't start fretting and sweating at night over it. It's just a plan. It's kind of like looking at that you're going to be, you're in Tornado Alley. Maybe if I'm going to decide to live there, I've got some decisions to make. Like maybe one of the things should be, I'm going to make a cellar that's tornado proof, or a locker that's tornado proof. I'm going to have to make provisions for this thing I'm walking into or find myself in. And this is really what this is about. So they want your information is the other side of this, but they aren't going to give up their secrets. Now, hopefully this will work out. Someone will be working on. Now this becomes a puzzle piece for someone to go solve, and someone's going to hack into this thing, and they'll figure it out, and we'll get the answer about it, and we'll all move to a different thing or whatever. This doesn't add that they go after Tor doesn't necessarily mean they can go after a double wrapped or triple wrapped type of thing. So those of you that are into doing this and understanding about it, well, you got the VPNs, and then you got like a software like the Linux distribution called Unix, which it uses a gateway which is also wrapped, which is uses the Tor inside, which is also wrapped, which is then uses encryption, which is also wrapped. So there's a lot of resistance you can put up to this. My feeling is I would do it just to make it difficult. Why just hand them the nonsense? Just that they think that, that they, is nonsense that they want to do. Make it difficult. Make yourself the target almost. Make them interested in you, and then they find nothing. See, what my point is, I don't want, and it just happens, I don't want the other side, whoever that is, to understand what I'm doing in real time. I don't care if because see, none of it's unlawful, so I don't care that they eventually find out. I don't want them to know in time that they could interrupt what I do by some nonsense, some frivolous nonsense, or some maybe apparent looking valuable nonsense. It looks good, but it really isn't. And because you have to deal with it. It takes time to deal with that. So here they want all your information, but they're not going to give up anything, and then they give us notice that Tor is vulnerable, which we've had some conjecture about, and I think that's what Snow Job Snowden was. The very first broadcast I talked about this thing with Snowden was a snow job. This is all part and parcel to this meme to tell you we're out here, we know it, we can do it, to shut you down. I say I do self-censor. I do self-censor a lot of things, not even related to maybe the surveillance state. But there's a lot of things I don't tell y'all. I mean, I couldn't. You have to be in the mind frame to be receiving what I would say. Like I talked to a friend, I felt he was ready to hear the next step. He's putting the time in. He needs to know where he's going. You got to be able to see the future a lot of times. So there's things that it won't matter. It might be interesting to you all, but then it exposes things that I don't want exposed, to tell you that that are techniques I don't want known, strategies I don't want known, tactics I don't want known. That when you get in, you'll need them and you'll use them. And I can only tell you there if I'm the one to tell you. Someone else may be there to tell you. And so, really, without paranoia, we live in battlefield America. I accept that. I don't know what else to say, because they tell us that's what they've made for us. And so we're living in a place where the other side is the enemy. It happens to be this government, they call us. And in actuality, we're supposed to be that government, aren't we? So, if we don't have the tiller of the ship of state, they do. It's pretty simple again. And while all this nonsense is going on with Apple and all this other thing, worst anti-privacy bill, while you're looking at the froth on the waves, on the ocean, underneath the depths is working the system to do more to you. Worst anti-privacy, and piracy too. The worst anti-privacy bill since the Patriot, Patriot Act, passes, hidden in a budget bill, and the media is silent. Well, they have a silent. I guess that means something else too. So why wouldn't the media be silent? They're the tool of the oppressor, the hostile oppressor. They're the tool of the government. Alt media is, in large part, apparently now the tool of government. You're just not going to go anywhere. It's co-opted just about every place. And I can only have you trust that it's not co-opted behind the woodshed. Your mind and your spirit and your heart should tell you that. That's why I shouldn't even broach that, but you can go, you should be able to go just about anywhere, and you'll never hear what you hear, what I'm telling you. And then you got to be careful. Some guys sound like, I've heard a couple of people, they do this in the miners do this. They would try to use the words I use. And like I told you, someone who knows can out them. Nobody who knows, they get enthralled with how smart someone else is. And I'm not doing it to be smart. I'm doing it to understand the battlefield and work through this military occupation we live under. Why do I say it that way? It's because if I take a lesser stance, then I'm not going to protect myself against that consequence, which I can show you as sitting everywhere. The unseen that to most people is not unseen to me. It's everywhere if you just know what to start looking. Look at what they do. Libra Code, first article, you don't have to read anything else. The first article tells you, you better watch their deeds. Take what they do, make a list, and then compare that to some place other set of rules. Because it's not in a Republican form of government, I can guarantee that. So, we have our ways of identifying these things. What we don't have is the people, is the comprehensive knowledge that they've gotten us weaned away from. And then they threw all this deceit on us and this surveillance state thing out in the open, which will suppress us. It's not the same just to call them out. Oh, I don't even want to say it. So I just don't like the language. I found out, notwithstanding a little thing I saw that before that says if you use the F word that you're really more intelligent. I don't agree with that. I kind of slumped into that language for a while. And after a while I didn't like what I was sounding. I said, well, why do I do this? And I was just frustrated. I got lazy. And so I pulled myself back out. I said, that's not really where I want to go. Okay, it was kind of, all right, it was the thing. But I pulled myself, I found other words. I required that I re-engage my language. And that's where I know that there's probably the only reason why I'm really up against it. There's always a proper placed word here and there. That's fine. However, for the most part, I found for me, maybe this is only for me, I was not using a part of my language power. And I got lazy with it. So I forced myself out and into this other thing. Well, then it got kind of easy. I don't have to have that language in the war that we're in, so that was easier. But I just want to throw that out there too. They make it easy. They give us stories that makes it easy to accept the mediocre condition. At least against how I compare my experience, which may or may not be valuable to some people. I don't talk, I just talk through it. I don't talk about it. So, while we're all looking at the Apple and the stage show between Apple and the FBI, who now could do it anyway, and we had plenty of evidence that they were going to do it, they've passed an anti-privacy bill hidden inside a budget bill. Well, this is the same thing that's going on like in the public lands management. The BLM passed a rural appropriations bill, and they're going to turn everybody into tenants. Completely contrary to law, but they're going to go ahead and do it. And I'm almost sure, unless we get some minors on that, task that, and send letters and get all over them like a lobbyist, and let them know what the crime it is, they're going to pass it because there's no knowledge anymore. First of all, there's no knowledge about the foundations of this United States of America, and there's no will to know because they're all under the agenda. Remember, the lawsuit sued the political parties. If you look at their mission statements, it's all agenda-driven. I'm talking international agenda-driven. There's no will to even look at this stuff. In fact, it's the antithesis of what we need in the country. So they pass a bill while you're looking at all the stuff with Apple and the FBI and the big show they put on there. They pass some more stuff and tagged it onto you that you have to be aware of. Just talked a little bit more than that. Maybe didn't even make any sense about it. I'm not even going to read from it. That's what they do. We need people to address this. I'm finding out if you do address it, people absolutely getting in their face and going through the frustration of having to deal with it and cutting right through their nonsense and delay, you become a force and effect that they do listen to. Now, it may be too late on this one, I don't know, with this appropriations. But see, that's where the point of it is also. It's the bottom line. The Congress agreed to this by paying for it. This is how fast this stuff gets knocked out. Just stop paying for it. The government is absolutely contained within their appropriations. Absolutely. Anything you find they're doing outside is a misappropriation of public funds. Why isn't anybody else using that? If someone in the government does something outside of their job, that's a misappropriation of public funds. That's a pretty... See, and I say it that way because the bottom line is the bottom line. It's really... all the ethics rules tie... not all of them, but most all of them, and you see the codes of the United States, the USC, United States Code, where crime is involved, you've got to have a buck somewhere. It's very frustrating, actually. You look at the U.S. Code. It's really a limited document for as much as they beat people down with it all. There really has to be some money involved. That's why you see Title 18's in commerce as well. And again, how many times, I can talk. Title 18's in commerce. We go back to Title 50. They got carte blanche license to beat you down. For what? the appendix is Rule 12A, 95A, Title 12, Rule 95A, finances. The finances are in this international law. It's all there for us, folks. If we just, and it's not like you all haven't heard this. It's just to me, it's just this repeat over and over and over. And I guess I get frustrated just hearing crickets, where in some regard, for those of us that looked out in the world and now we realize it's been stolen from us, you'd think you'd be energized just to see if you could go get it back. But no, see, they've got us all beat down. They've got us, and it's not easy. I can't say it's easy. I'm not saying that it's easy, but that's the other thing. They made it so it wasn't easy, wasn't it? It's easy to get involved. It's not easy to resist. Everyone talks about resistance, but as we've heard, resistance is futile. And that's why there's no resistance, because resistance is not futile. It's like the question, is reality real? Of course it is. The first four letters tell you that it's the same. So why do you have a question? Why do we even get into these questions? I think Salviner was accurate to say it's doublespeak in the context that it's just it's nonsense talk. It's the way that you can't function talk. It's a duality talk. There's nothing singular about any of it that actually functions. You start finding that the language has a dual purpose. For instance, the word sanction, it can mean to withhold as it can mean license, to give permission. We accept a language like that. Completely inefficient, completely useless to us. Anyway, it's up to us to start to change that. You can embrace all that. You can sign an application in the state that says you agree to follow the laws of that state, be in the state. Now you have no excuse to complain that they talk in double speak that way, that they talk in legal speak, that they talk in whatever speak. It's their speak, and you've asked them to put it on you. You had every choice not to. Now you know the reality. The real thing is, if you don't, they will beat you up when you don't. Well, that's a different type of thing now, and that's where we also haven't stepped up. So, while we were looking at the minutia, here they passed another anti-privacy bill. And so that means that you have to be more private. It doesn't mean you have to stop what you're doing. It just means that in the battlefield, they're giving themselves more inroads to make you the criminal that they've already presumed you to be. Why I don't touch too much on some of that, more on how do you respond when they come to tell you about that. And in talking in one of the chats here, I think it was a few days ago, I got to remind everybody, be careful on what you think you're hearing here and where it actually applies. You always have to take what I'm saying, well, it's in a generic statement. It's not even attached to anything, which is the main problem. You can't take the things I'm telling you and just apply them to everything. In other words, you can't go into, in this example without naming anybody, you can't take what I tell you about challenging jurisdiction if you're going to get a subpoena. Inside. If you want to fight that subpoena for lack of jurisdiction, that's one thing. To wait until they get you and then fight the jurisdiction after the subpoena, inside, forget it. You're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. So everything in its place and in its time. It really is there's a methodology behind it, and I don't direct it. It explains to us how we do it. I didn't make the rule, you knows them when you sees them. That came out of Francis Lieber in acknowledging what international law imposition on war and the rules of war would be. That was where they threw this country on its head. And so that's the reality. What are you going to do about it is the real question about our future. The other reason the FBI doesn't want to reveal its hacking techniques is another thing I found here this week. Now we're analyzing this thing. We're getting ourselves into it. Well, they don't want to be found, again, they don't want to find this stuff out. They don't want you to find out how they're doing, where they're doing it. They don't want to, let's say, I'll read it right off the paper of a lawsuit. The response: discourage cooperation from third parties and other governmental agencies who rely on these techniques is a critical situation. They don't want you to know that there's all kinds of people doing this against us all. And it's all the corporations. It's all these tools, these fictional tools that at one time were supposed to work for the public good, turned in on the people, because they're not really there either. They're the unlive, and this is the undead against the unlive. It's really the zombie apocalypse, and the bottom line is the bottom line, and so they don't want you to know, because the bottom line is they don't want you to start running away from what they've constructed. They don't want to have you find alternatives. So I can read this stuff. I didn't get any feedback that you want me to. I'm not going to truncate an idea too much without reading, but I'm not going to keep going on. I want you to be aware of what our dynamic is. I'm talking to you, and I'm hoping beyond hope that we have a whole lot less, we have more than crickets. And way beyond the insect world, the adults, remember, they call you an adult, you're just an insect to these people. So they give us, this whole system is set up to protect itself. It's set up with its own hackability. They won't, it's all, you can see what the problem with the FBI not wanting to tell you. This is not about transparency. This is not about openness. This is not about truthful society. This is about what y'all can get away with. It's all of us. What else we can get away with? Now, I'm not one to be taken, so I don't have much. And then I found out what little bit I have they want to take, and a lot of that was my ability to go get stuff, make for myself. They want to take that away. And so that's my little battle. That's all we do. That's all I do. I just want to go to where I just want to go bust rock. I want to collect rock. I'm a miner. What can I tell you? Sorry. Just so happens that what I produce as a miner is needed by a society, and that society has declared, whether it is a military occupation or not, that that's valuable to that society. It's called a public use and a public benefit. Does that exalt me? No, it just puts me at the bottom rung, providing for the rest. So why beat down on me is my only question. Why are you treating me like this when I've agreed to become a servant to the whole society? That's how screwed up this whole thing is. I don't even really have more of an anger about it. I just, what the heck? And yet, we develop, over all these years now, that you see how complicated it seems to sound. And all this question is why are you on my neck? And each one of you says that. That's why you're involved. But we're not going to do anything by having that boot stay on our neck. That's for sure. We have to remove that boot real quick and then not allow it to come back on. And if they try to, we have to expose that as well. And this is where we get to the prairie dogs. Hopefully more prairie dogs will see it, and we'll know that the beast is right there. We'll run to cover, and we'll be a group to do that. And then we thwart whatever the attack is, and we come out for another day, and we're a little wiser. So they entice you and induce you into the system. I think Gary L. put a tweet out about Holder talking about there's no voter fraud, and I responded to say, yeah, if he's talking about the actual electors within the federal sense, there probably is no voter fraud. That's only a handful of people, and those are hand-selected people. So within the context, he said there's no voter fraud. Oh, everyone throws their hands up. Oh, what do you mean? Well, you don't understand. You're not the voter. There is no voter fraud. They don't talk about you. They're talking about the electors that keep the system in place. There's no voter fraud in there. He doesn't qualify that. He just lets you believe he's talking about you. And so there's this reality show now. We're talking about what's real. We're now seeing the reality show. They're now telling us in this last campaign set here, I don't know about the last one, but the one that they're now parading before us, it's all a big reality show. And so they got their Trump card at the pinnacle at this point. He's running the news. It's his show at this point. So it doesn't matter. They're all no good. They're all no good. I'm on record. He's going to be far left of Hillary. It's not going to be good. I know a lot of you guys are all want to say he's our savior. I don't believe that. The whole system is no good, so I don't buy into any of it. I'm not into being used as a franchise for a system of commerce. It's so far for me. It's so far beyond. If you don't vote, you don't have a say. And that argument. Well, wait a minute. The real reality is, if I'm not registered, I'm also not able. And therefore, you shouldn't trespass with your minimal vote on me. But that's not the way that works. So there's lots of ways to be looking at these things. That you got to be careful what kind of glasses they put on you, whether you know them or not. And one of the things that's come out now and I don't know who, maybe Colonel Sanders put this out against Trump and Hillary, because they're both, Trump and Hillary are named at the end of this article, but it came out this week. Andres Sepulveda comes clean from Colombian jail. This is how you hack a presidential election. And this is a very interesting story, report, given it's true, given it's correct. Very, very interesting who players are and who's involved and who's not, and how this goes about, and how they use electronics to, not just electronics, they use social media because, as he says in here, he realized, and he's a young guy, and he uses his hacking ability to get into systems, and he has a crew of people that's paid handsomely to go do this, to spread memes within the social media structure. In other words, the internet was made for a military purpose. They found a captive audience, and they found we can induce people to use it. Then we can use this social media, social justice, social engineering. We will have these people in our hands, and we will have everything we need all at one spot. We'll hand them what we need, and then we have control of them. As we were talking about last week and the week before about Google being able to put search results, this guy found out he wrote a program that he could put out hundreds of Twitter accounts that started to address certain memes and threads and trends, and he could persuade people by what they said, by interacting through false accounts. That we see Twitter as just another tool of this establishment to control us. It's all right here for it. This is Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars laid out now in real time. This guy comes in. I had a hard time not believing this dynamic, what he was saying. I'm going to follow, again, the worst case scenario. I'm going to have to believe that it's real. You need to see that if you think your vote means anything. If you think it's worse than that, because it's not about the vote. It's about the mentality it imposes on people in the guy or woman that ends up being in the office. That they allow that for another few years. Like, look at what the Unqualified's done on his campaign. Wow. So, very, very interesting to hear the dynamics inside that we really don't, the ugly underbelly of political campaigning and subversion and getting you to be persuaded. Even if you don't vote, you're going to have an opinion. It's going to be persuaded by these people. Even if it's to say no and object. That's all planned for. See, just saying stuff, just having an opinion is what they want. They do not want someone to see through this and can actively move against them. Absolutely not. That's what terrifies them. And you listen to that, you hear like Brzezinski, big news Brzezinski. He said that. He goes, this internet thing, man, it's not a good deal. Because it's motivating people beyond their ability to be propagandized to. And I would have to say, only in the sense that it doesn't go after fad conditions that seem to pervade the internet. And I think that's also fostered. This guy tells us how elections are co-opted. I'm telling you, consider that in a commercial sense. How is your mind co-opted to go in different directions? How does everybody want GMO labeling? And then you find out, if you look deeper, you don't want GMO labeling. Not because we don't want GMOs labeled, it's because of what the exceptions are underneath the labeling consequence. There hasn't been any stable, thoughtful discussion about what's a GMO-derived chemical, a GMO organism-derived chemical versus an actual material within your food structure or your medicines, if they're given that they can be made good. We don't have that. That's all convoluted, so you don't know. Your mind on that is altered by what you see. This guy tells you how they do it. Another guy in the line of the study that came out that showed that Google can program you, and even if you know that they're doing that, you'll be the worst case to swing your opinion in the direction you've been told. That alone stuns me just thinking about that. That you know they're doing it to you, that you would actually still go where they are directing you, and at a much greater rate than anybody else, or those that don't know. It has to show you the frailty of your nature. And here's the key, and if this came out this week, study shows mass government surveillance silences unpopular opinions. That's what it's about, folks. They tell you this is what Snowjob Snowden seems to me to be. I don't think that, Alex on the previous show said he hadn't heard anybody that was contrary to Snowden, except for John Rappaport. You know, my first broadcast, I was saying, no, this looks like a big, this is a big play for you. You can accept it. I think this is Snowjob Snowden. Edward Snowjob Snowden. This is a snow job. There's just nothing that's making sense about this thing. They want you to know they can do this, and they want to shut you down. So I'm going to, I've heard lots of guys, so we know we got to do the 180. You can't shut up. What I'm going to give you as a condition here, you're in a reality that you have not controlling. You can't just say anything. You still have to self-censor. What you self-censor is the stuff that makes you culpable underneath the new definition. Like I told you, you remain silent on everything that makes you liable or culpable. You don't shut up on anything that doesn't. It takes a little bit to start to figure that out. Let me say that again. You shut up on everything and anything that they might construe to make you liable. You do not shut up on everything else that exposes it. Why? Why do you constrain that part? Because you don't want to give them an excuse to take you out. And you want every excuse to be able to defend yourself. Why? Because that outs them when you do it right. You show them up again. So there's a method about this. You just can't be jumping from the frying pan in the fire just because you want to be contrary to the thing you perceive. We're in a reality. It's a dynamic reality. It's dealing on the way they tell us. I don't have to guess any of this. If I thought about it before and guessing, I don't. They tell us it's multidimensional, and it's that word dimensional is a whole lot. I mean, that's really a big statement right there. So, anyway, they want us to be fighting amongst ourselves in certain ways and saying certain things and shut ourselves down so that we don't convey, because we aren't told that line. I'm suggesting strongly, do not just go out and say anything just to be the guy or gal that says anything. Look at what you need to say and say it in a way that doesn't provide them an ability to hook you. That's the important key. You have the right to remain silent. I'm telling you to remain silent on everything that makes you liable and culpable, at least everything you can find that will. And then do not remain silent on everything else. And if you're on point, on target, over the target, you're going to be talking about them in a way they can't touch that. And it exposes them. And you just hope over time enough people start getting it. And my experience is there's not that many people that engage. I can tell them immediately. We just had another gentleman found out what this is about. He can't get enough. He's a sponge. This is what happens. If I have to start dragging someone to the water to make them drink, I stop. There's no sense in even dragging anymore. Let the horse run. When you hear the truth in you coming out from what you hear by someone else, you want more. Absolutely. Not just, not the silver bullet stuff. I mean, you hear foundation. And I can tell immediately when the sponge happens. It's immediate. At that point, I've got to keep up. I mean, that's as anybody else that I've seen run across this as well. But those people are so few at this point. It's a big question. Are we going to do this? I know we can. I see it right there. It's right there. The resolution to this is right there. I can touch it. But I can't touch it on my own, and therefore it's useless to me. That if we all saw it, we could touch it, and then it works. It's kind of like we all have to, it's that consent thing for the right reason. We have to have that in us to make that decision. We have to know what reality is and not make a question out of it. They wanted to make a question out of what reality is. You have to make one for yourself in this delusion and illusion that they've created. No, that's the delusion and illusion. I said they created. Now, who are they? You can find them if you know what you're looking for. You look right through them. It's no joke. What is it? They said that the movie They Live was a documentary. That one of the actors actually said that, admitted that. It was really a documentary. And now I know it's the glass thing. They tell us about rose-colored glasses, and they use those glasses. I know that's a figurative thing, but the reasoning behind that is exactly what they've done, but they don't use the glasses. You've got your own on. And you don't know, they've kept those glasses off from you. And you don't know that they're there, that you have to build them, but the glasses are actually in your brain. You have to build the glasses in your head to see what's actually going on. These are glasses that can't slap off your face, as I said before. Ron got a point. He ran with it. He's the sponge. He got everything he needed. He came up to the right conclusion. Maybe not the way I would say it, but he said it. He said it in the way it means the same thing as my meaning. Ron Stefan on Game On, and it was last week, or I think it was last week, I told you to go listen to that broadcast where he defines this condition, and he finds a word, and I pronounce it just a little bit different than what it's spelled, but it's the same point, the cockatocracy. You live in a cockatocracy, the stinking abyss. You live in a cockatocracy. He's come to it. Ron and I are standing shoulder to shoulder on that point, looking into the stinking abyss. He sees that. He describes it his way. Everyone will. And so then we have to look, okay, here it is, now what? And now what do we do with this? And that's a different discussion, something I probably won't talk too much. But study shows mass government surveillance silences unpopular opinions. You will be suppressed. No matter how little it is, you will be suppressed. I'm saying you have to know that, and you have to understand there's a reason for it, but what you have to do, always, we had this is not new since the surveillance state. Surveillance state's been forever. We just didn't really know about it. Now they're admitting it to us. Why? Because they want us to shut down. And so there's a way to not shut down, but also you don't want to bring yourself into liability. You don't have to. It's just you don't have to. You don't have to be the shock jock to the point that you, in your offering, that you cause trouble for yourself. And so I guess this is it. I mean, the study shows that it's going to limit you, and then you have the other side that they're programming you. So you figure out how you're going to know what you know. Along those lines, we now find out that what we've been saying about the propaganda media, you can't trust it, all this other stuff. We know that Congress made a law. They can now propagandize to you. This is not secret now. So there's not anything you can actually look out anywhere. And actually, I told you there's going to be a time in your life. We were told this decades ago. There's going to be a time in your life, and this may have been from books we read from decades before that, when you can't trust anything, literally. And I've been I guess what's really interesting is we've been talking about things like Google and movies and the news and all this. I'm telling you, your society, the instrumentalities of your society are a false front facade B-movie Western. Because there's something behind that. There's actually a couple layers. That you look right at the society and you actually deal with it like it's actually that. And it's not. World-class journalist spills the beans, admits mainstream media is completely faked. Very interesting. Got a video. There's some videos. Recently, Dr. Udo Ulcott went on public television stating that he was forced to publish the works of an intelligence agent under his own name, also adding that non-compliance with these orders would result in him losing his job. So, he comes to terms with that. He'll lose his job now, but you have to deal with that. Yes, he succumbed to that unethical thing. See, it's easy to do. So no judgment. He now is repentant. He's rethought the condition, and he's acting differently. That's the proof. He's acting differently. He's at least outing it. Well, we kind of knew that. Well, now we got one guy from the inside that whistleblows that. Again, you can't trust anything that you're looking at. Anything. It's really a difficult thing. Because and another article popped up weeks ago it comes right in line here. I'm telling you folks that notice to us, however this collective consciousness works, given that that's there. And I have an invention in patenting that seems to be there, because if you have an inspiration that's under the laws for patentable, you better get that idea filed, because if you don't, you're going to find out within 3 to 6, 4, 5, 6 months, someone else will file. The idea's never been in the world before, and all of a sudden, a whole pockets of people get the idea, and people start filing on it. And so there's this this idea that you can see this collective consciousness, that ideas come in these frequencies, these waves, these time portholes, however they come on us around the world, they come on us. All this stuff starts to come out at one time. We're all in disparate places, but we all start speaking the same things. And now I don't remember the gentleman's name, but Half Past Human, I think they wrote that program that looks at linguistics, and they can predict the future by what we say in the social media. Well, predict it somewhat. Again, I haven't looked at what he does, and I apologize. I think it's a brilliant concept to use a sensory tool to figure out that we actually know the future, at least collectively. So, Surviving the Battlefield in the Information War was an article written by Tony Carlucci. I'm not going to go through it, except that he's done it. He's starting to realize there's a thing you have to be able to go through this battlefield. He agrees it's there. That's no joke. Battlefield America exists. It's battlefield world is what it is. And you're the enemy at about every turn. Unless you can position yourself like I've been noticing to do, and then you have a word in your mouth, and they're not supposed to mess with that. They become the oxymoron to their own cause if they come against you, is what the point is. They become the open violation of their stated thing. You expose them again. It's really not that hard to see how this dynamic works. The truth does prevail. You have to put yourself on that narrow path. This is no joke. These are no joke. We're told all this stuff in plenty of places. Surviving on the Battlefield in the Information War. And he goes through, I've told you this, I don't do it so organized. It's organized here. You can go through, I'll just go through find the original source. Let's do the checklist, what I've been telling you all this time. You have to protect yourself. Then when you go retell what this stuff is, it has to be infallible. As I've said this a long time because I learned it as a brutal experience, and I'm watching masses of miners agree to something I couldn't stop because I was taken advantage of, and they were not bright enough to figure out how to re-listen to what I said correctly a decade or so ago. You can't be wrong once, folks, on this stuff. And I'm saying that in a fundamental, foundational way. You can be wrong and willing to go change and find and re-educate yourself and say, oh, okay, I made a mistake. That kind of wrong you can be. But when you make a wrong, you study something that was a wrong and you've been kind of promoting it or trying to get people to do it as like a salvation thing, you can't do that. You have to really... Because when you stay on the foundation, you realize why you can't stay. You can't step off the narrow path. You can't get off the bright line. You have to always step on the bright line. It's called integrity, right? You have to be true to that. And so, find the original source. And not just the source, but you have to understand the context of the source. Everything has a way, an environment it exists in. Try to understand that. It takes a little bit longer than reading the funny papers, I can tell you that. Find the original source. The big one. What have I said earlier? Follow the money. What's the bottom line of the bottom line, folks? He has it. Second list. Follow the money. Absolutely. Misappropriation of public funds. Where those funds come from. How they're coming. There's so many ways to come at this. See, I'm focused more on these government institutions that's an organized criminal syndicate against you. So I follow the money that way. Our Solutions Network grant stream funding was based in that, wasn't it? What I called the black hole leveraging of funds, which is how they tax you without you knowing it, that goes into these black hole funding streams that are perpetual. That's our lawsuit in 2013. The misappropriation and deception to people who end up paying the property owners, the producers, have to pay for this parasitic world. The sycophants is what they are. They're living off of everything. These politicians are sycophants. These organizations are sycophants. They live off of you as a parasite. Follow the money is the number 2 here in his list. Look at what people do, not what they say. Indeed. Indeed. Think about what I've been saying, folks. All this time, Tony comes up with it. It's there. The knowledge is there. He finally writes on it. I say, okay, here, if you haven't heard it from me organized, here's one article. He'll go through his opinion of it. He'll list it. I'm just going after the heading lines, and that's good enough for me. That's just good for me. That's good enough. Now, there's a depth to what he's saying, and he writes his point, but I know it's just not just follow the money. There's a lot to following the money. Finding the original source. That's an important one, but it's not just finding that source. But he gives you the list. If you wanted to know how to do this, it's only like 3 steps. Find the original source, follow the money, and look at what people do. What did I say? Libra Code, folks. Article 1. They don't have to proclaim their martial law, military rule, whatever. Any oppressor, any hostile force. You just know them by what they do to you. I say make an itemized list on what the elements of what they do to you is, and then compare that list to some other thing you're going to find as a definition. You'll find it. Like I'm doing international law research right now to bring back up some old studies and apply them. Apply the standard, the elements, to something I talk about periodically. You've heard about the Wild and Scenic Act. If you look at the elements that are applied to people that remain in a Wild and Scenic Act area, you're going to find that the BLM has become a hostile, oppressive force on that land, and what they've done is they've come in and invaded a state's sovereignty to do that. How do I know that? You look at the elements of what the people remaining there have to do, and it comports with also something in the Libra Code called the rules of usufruct. No, I didn't cuss. Usufruct. And so, this is what a highway is, essentially. It's a common possession with no independent right of possession. But if you look at the elements of what the BLM does to people remaining in the Wild and Scenic Act, that's a violation on its face. I want to go into all that. But when you look at the elements that someone living in there, they've been put from a possessory right into a tenancy, and now they're subject to a list of elements. When you look at those things, those elements, you'll see that's what it comports to, that you can identify the agency of the federal government is a hostile invading force in those lands. Number one. Number two is when they do that as an acquisition, they acquire the land to do that under the law. This is not my opinion. I'm shocked when I see all the truth of this. All of it's always there. That the BLM acts as a corporation. This is above and beyond what everyone says the United States is a corporation. This is in the statutes. So you know that until they do that, they're not. So now you got to adjust your conversation about what a United States government is a corporation. Because I've told you there's many different statuses that the governments are. You have to track which one they are. In this case, where the BLM or a federal agency acquires land, they do so as a corporation. And so we have a foreign corporation coming into the state under wherever the Wild and Scenic Act is to take out and take down and oppress the people and render them into a tenancy subject to their landlord now. Pretty fascinating when you start looking at the elements instead of looking at what you're told to look at. Look at what they do, not what you're told they do. So that was an example for some of you that are listening about this. Look at what people do, not what they say. That's Libra Code Article 1, folks. So Tony Carlucci is not reciting Libra Code, but it's completely uniform, these things in the world, in the reality that we're up against, that I try to focus you on. I just find these things in the internet now that just to give you if you need a nice, more concise statement here, go read Tony Carlucci's article. I'm not even reading what he's written. I don't even know if I agree with his opinions about those subheadings. I'm just telling you, he sees at least the headings. It's not about our opinions on a thing. I'm trying to identify the framework within which you live. Your freedom is within that framework. And you better deal with that. And there's ways to get through it, and you got to do it with a lot of integrity on all sides. And so, but not saying you have no integrity if you're hearing this for the first time, because you have a natural integrity. You need to amplify that. You can't be wrong once here. You'll be crucified, literally. That's what they're looking for. And yet you can't remain silent. See, if you do it wrong, they'll crucify you. You say something that makes you liable, you have the right to remain silent, and anything you can and say will be used against you in court of law. It's only those things that make you liable, those confessions you make. You can talk until you're dead because you got blue in the face and ran out of oxygen, and they can't prosecute you if everything you said was not in the side that they can use for your liability. That's where you have to be. I said, I didn't shut up for over an hour and 15 minutes, and I had a bunch of cops wanting to arrest us. There was nothing I said over an hour and 15 minutes that was culpable to any liability in the law for crime, even though they were there to find something. So people that say, "Oh, you do a felony every day," I don't know about that. You got to give the other side as well when they're there. It doesn't mean it's going to stop their criminality. They certainly were having to deal with a whole lot more with me than what they thought was going to be their story. And so, again, understand your source material. This is so critical, I guess, and when I saw this, so great that he wrote this. Find your source material, find it original. Don't get it off the internet. Don't get it off of somebody's brief. Don't get it off of their opinion. Go back and track back their thoughts and proof them out. Follow the money if you're looking down that track. Absolutely find the grant stream fundings, find how the appropriations. What we talked about, I said, they're trying to kill us going through appropriations rules of Congress. Congress is the one allowing this. Maybe some of you need to task yourself to start outing these things with Congress. Just put the egg all over them. Just have fun putting egg on them, I guess, is another idea. It's not because it's fun, but it's because you get to do it because they're not following the law, and if you don't do it, they're going to harm you with it. So they harm you with a lot of opinions. They harm you with a lot of standards that aren't correct. And they continue to follow the money, right? It's all about the money. Well, this is what I've been telling you on the international spectrum. These excuses end up coming down to charging you money, like the carbon tax impositions, all on a fraud. The science doesn't exist actually for this. It's on a hypothesis of a relationship that hasn't even been looked at very well, but everyone accepts it. And so here we have follow the money, and you get them, the people that are involved, actually telling you that. And this is not something, oh yeah, we know now, we can go back to sleep. No, this is where you take this up and you go and you start beating the representative about the head and shoulders over why he's agreed to carbon tax in your state, or the mileage meter on your car, or why did he make it so that you can't remove yourself from being in commerce? How come you can't use your roads as a matter of right, like the Congress granted to everyone? You take this stuff and you use it. You just don't listen to me talk about it. I take this stuff. In fact, I found an article, I'm looking through, found an article where Israel is stealing the gravel from Palestine, and so Palestine made a complaint. Under international law, that's a war crime. Wow, cool. There's some confirmation of a thought I had. Guess what? That's what the states are doing to the people here. Only they did it in the reverse manner. Remember, sustainable development is conservation. That's not stealing, actually, in the obvious sense. They're not taking anything away when they conserve it in place, are they? But guess what they're doing in a land that's made to be used, land that's supposed to be used? They're supposed to administer it for use. The usufruct. This is the rules of usufruct. Non-use violates that. So you have to be a little bit creative thinking on how you're going to take this. They were pretty smart on how they figured this out. I've had to be a little bit more intelligent on how that was supposed to actually apply, and I realized that I can take their conservation plan and turn it into a war crime. It's not. I'm just reading the rules, folks. I don't know what to do more than this. Okay, the black and white tells me I get to do this. It means that you have an international hostile force in your land doing this. And where did I get some clues? I got it someplace else. It's a global problem, this international occupation, this military oppression. Fraud, while the global, and this is all where it ties into as well, global warming alarmists have done a good job of spreading fright. They haven't been so good at hiding their real motives. Yet another one has slipped up and revealed the catalyst driving the climate scare. And so, what is that? It's what I've been telling you. This is all an economic or financial construct to destroy y'all. You see it in Agenda 2030. You see it, the Sustainable Development's written. It's all written all over it. It's all about financial debt servitude everywhere. And what's the statement coming out of this guy, Edenhofer, a gentleman who's been involved with this from inside? He says we redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. We redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. Well, how did I come up with it before he said that, folks? It's written in the paperwork. What did Lagarde say? She said the same thing. With 150 years, we're going to transform, another special word, we're going to transform this whole economic thing that's been existing for 150 years. It's going to be transformed. This guy tells you that it's de facto, it's outside of law, but a present force against you, the invader of a world's wealth. They didn't talk about credit here, did they? Didn't even talk about finances. They're talking about the actual wealth. That's the stuff of the land. That means the land itself. And by climate policy. So, it's there. Another evidence. I would roll this up on a printout, and I'd use this to go beat a representative over the head and shoulders about why did he allow carbon tax credit systems? Why is he still allowing climate change to be a reality? Why is he allowing sustainable development? Where the case of Jefferson Mining District versus Kitzhaber in 2013 showed that the Bar Association, the political parties, are all undermining the nation to destroy it by these policies. You have the evidence here, folks. It's kind of, I'm not excited on this one, but I guess you could be excited about some of this. Here it is. This is not a question. This is not something to let go by either. Oh, we sit now smug that we have our knowledge. How smart we were to have figured it out years ago. That's the wrong thing to do. That's crickets right there. That's crickets. But he says it. I just went to you can read the article, you can read the setup, you can do all the filler if you want. The Blogcaster will have the link to the article. You need to go. I put in the Blogcaster an excerpt that I think kind of fulfills the main meaning. But you need to go to the links, you need to read the stuff. You need to read how this works, and you need to think about, okay, if I'm going to be functional in this world and this reality that we're up against, and I want to do something to stop it or harm it, to stop harming me, it's an invading foreign alien force in your life. You know, Trump is all worried about, everyone's all, well, we got to get Trump, he's saying he's going to lock off the border. You're so invaded by other aliens, it's not even funny. There you go again, looking at the border, and you didn't realize that someone forgot to close the door a long time ago. And then we only think two-dimensionally. We forgot they may come from above. All right, so I'm trying to keep all you listeners that listen to Art Bell, okay? They come from above. And almost wishing that they would. That's what Reagan did. Oh, if we get attacked from the aliens from above, we'll all have to get together, aren't we? Well, how stupid was that he agrees that we're not together now, we don't have any intention unless an alien comes from above. To show you the plan right before us. But here it is. De facto, the world's wealth is going to be affected. It's exactly what you see in what I've been telling you for years. It's exactly what caused the focus. It's part of our lawsuit to enjoin. It was the Solutions Network grant stream funding for policy, climate change policy consideration and advancement. It's all in the books. It's not even a hard thing to do. And these people are sitting de facto. You have to understand what he's telling you here. This is an alien hostile force in your land. They have no standing. As soon as you find them out, you can throw them out. They are making war crimes on you. It's all there to be pointed out. Sitting in a chat room and talking about all you know about the Constitution and all you know about the rights over someone else and kind of dominate the conversation. Useless to everybody. Useless to everybody. I really don't have time in my mind. I don't have my mind and time to even deal with it. Notwithstanding, I can't type so well, and so the chats are they're kind of painful. We're all so far off point. He says it right here. This is not the only thing. Remember, this is climate policy. Remember, sustainable development touches every aspect of your life under a three-legged stool. They've had to add 2 more because they found out we can chew up 3 of them. Oh, we better put, or 2 of them for sure. The other one's kind of hidden, but they threw on 2 more just in case. They control every aspect. Remember, production to consumption. And then they lied about the type of production. We've identified what that is. I don't think there's anybody else in the whole world other than those people that know. Well, they don't even know because they don't even know this actually. There's only a couple of us in the world that knows this distinction. You know it by me telling you. We know how to analyze for this production that's not production. They're not talking about production. They think they're talking about production. And production is not, it doesn't even fit inside their bean counter ledgers. That was just proven to the bean counter, a government bean counter. He found out he couldn't put production in there. They're forcing it in there. This is a crime. And so no one's been around to witness it. There's just a couple of us that do this. You could be part of that too. And it's not just on what we do with raw materials out of the public lands. It's in housing. It's in food security. It's everywhere. It's in these pharmaceuticals. It's in all this stuff. All of it. It sits there to be raised. In the uselessness of our language, raised means to be destroyed, brought down. So our words are, again, kind of interesting. Anyway, here it is. So what is the goal of environmental policy? The one of the legs of the 3-legged stool they came out with in the UN Agenda Sustainable Development. What is the environmental policy? It is to redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. Okay, I repeat it. I want to show, this is important. That's why I've been repeating it. You have to understand this is the this is the log you need to run down the door of their fortress. This is what I've been telling you as well. Follow the money. Tony Carlucci has it. One of the headings of 3-legged stool. The three strand cord is strong, folks. What you can take one out, you destroy them. You have easy way to destroy them. WikiLeaks reveals IMF plan to cause a credit event in Greece and destabilize Europe. Follow the money. Follow who's wielding the money, folks. Even the illusion of the money. IMF plan on WikiLeaks has been exposed to be there to destroy Europe and actually destroy destroy Greece, but also destroy the European Union. Bring it into what have I told you? Bring it into what? Abject debt servitude. What did Agenda 2030 say? Abject debt servitude. And how would they do it? They're going to use migration of people to do it. Coming and a-going. Here it is, the emails that came from a WikiLeaks leak. Maybe there's an insider going to give us some stuff here. Maybe it's a psyop. I would say no because it's in their paperwork. The plan is there, folks. So I believe in this one. I believe this one without even looking. I believe it. Why? Because their plan says they've got to do this. They're going to do it. They've been doing it. So, self-evident proof in my case. It's just proving the obvious. Cause a credit event increase. Watch out, folks. Watch out. Remember here also that how vulnerable you are to fiscal and monetary policy. Every one of you. Every one of you. You almost can't get far enough away from this. Even the preppers, even the people that are understand this. This is how serious the economic leg of the stool is. It's a complete life changer. So we have a couple of steps back to pull from this one, but now we have the article. You can read it for yourself. It's now found out these people are planning behind the scenes to cause events in order to happen. We know they happen. We see the events, but this is looking into the future now. This is not a question, and we're not following the crumbs here. They've now telegraphed the future. Now, what are you going to do about that? Pharmaceutical giant Novartis facing lawsuit over bribing doctors to prescribe their drugs. Follow the money. Not going to even talk about the story. It's just headlines that tell you we are done. The corporations are just abjectly taking advantage, and we hear these little things come out like the government's doing something about it. That's the one they caught. How many thousands went on, folks? This is what the other theme of this broadcast. How much? Okay, you hear some of this stuff. How much is going on behind the scenes? And you've seen evidence that lots is going on behind the scenes. So there's a lot of work to do at some level. We each have to take our part. Otherwise, we agree. We're really part of the enemy, aren't we? You'll argue. Those of you that don't want to take up your part will probably say no, but we are. We agree. We are accessories to the crime against us. How long have I been saying that? Stop being the accessory to the crime against you. The government steps up every once in a while to try and show it's there and doing something, but it's not. Because what are they looking at? They're looking at risk management. They're actually looking at the insurance side of this. How are they going to keep this toned down and use the ability for the government to mollify this in the people's perception? The occupied people's perception has to be mollified, because if you don't, they're going to riot. And what you don't want them to do, and so you got to keep them divided, because when they riot, they'll chew each other up. But if they organize, that's the big deal. We can't have them organize and rise up. Can't have that. That's not because, we're scared. It's because reality and world reality and history says when the people organize and stand up, their occupiers die. They're done. Because the rule is the occupier gets thrown out when the occupier gets thrown out. And you as an occupier, you don't have a defense against that, do you? No, that's reality. So at one level you see we're talking about having to rise up physically, but we're not quite there yet, so we got to do informational campaigns against the PSYOP that's an information war. The HIV vaccine researcher gets 57 months in prison for fraud, showing how this article tells me how somebody inside the scientific community can be, this is the one that got caught too, can be doing fraudulent test setup. They can set up the tests they need, and for the most part, no one else sees it. And they get the result that they want. And no one sees the adulteration that went on within the scientific study, in the university. No one sees it until something happens, an outside witness happens, and now the house of cards comes falling down. That what happens when there's not that outside witness? The house of cards stands, and there's no wind blowing to blow the house of cards down. That you get that result in your pharmaceutical vaccines, in your chemistry, in university testing, and what these corporations use to go to the agencies that are going to give them license to plunder and make profit, the bottom line. A federal judge last week made Dong Phu Han, PhD, a FUD, a former researcher at Iowa State University, an example to anyone tempted to cook data for the sake of funding the National Institute of Health, be funding from the National Institute of Health. So, again, the government doesn't like when you scam them. They don't care about scamming you, but they don't like when you scam them. And all the laws are written. If you look very carefully, you'll see that money is a really integrated part of the commerce connection, part of the actually the monetary connection, because of the debt that they use and they advance, and that's the privilege that you take when you use it. And you see the control that the IMF has behind the scenes. It destroyed nations. This is why, what was it? Was it a Rockefeller or Rothschild said, I don't care about the vote, just give me the command of the money supply? You're seeing it right here. This is not a conjecture. This is not a nice story, a cool story told. This is not drama and things of movies. This is the reality that you live in. That there's people, FUDs out there, PhDs, sitting in laboratories that are willing to adulterate tests. Now, what if that was one guy in maybe it was a generally good university lab that got someone injected, and they started doing this? Well, if you were in a lab that was completely closed and they were all doing this? Would the wind blow hard enough to blow the house of cards down? Is highly unlikely. I always look at this and say, this is one, folks, that got it. I don't think we appreciate how bad it is. And then, again, breaking here before the broadcast, Gary L. Produces something he thought I'd like, and I started reading the front part. Sure enough, I have to read the second and third page yet, but what I saw is absolutely correct. It also just more confirmation of the stories, the question that goes on around science. I've told you for years, science is prostrate before the truth, and here's all the proofs that we can do. Well, here's another look at science. Apparently this is a book, Betrayers of the Truth, Fraud and Deceit in the Halls of Science. This is not science. This is scienceology. And then it's not even that. It's deceit. It's just fraud. It's before we were talking before about this, these come under the authority that looks like authority to interfere with you, where you have a right, property interest, a remedy, and they interfere with that. That's a felony theft by extortion. That's what's going on here. This is a complete felony theft by extortion, even sub-international law. So they're questioning now the science, not this is what purports itself as science, and they tie it again to this funding, government funding streams. These people know where their bread is buttered, folks. So they kind of lean and they try to do things that will favor where the money comes from. Why all of a sudden you had climate science? It's not science. It's just a bunch of people. These are just parasites off the government grants funding streams. And thank you, Wanataco. As I look up, permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws. Mayor Azel Rothschild. It wasn't even about voting, see? It's about the whole law. He knows that they're just jokes. He knows that they're actually sanction, a permission of crime. He's just the top of the criminal, and the crime is paid for by the money supply. So, science is, again, all this stuff science-based. Remember, science-based is what they base the UN agenda on, the sustainable development. Science-based. It's not science. We have plenty, Jefferson Mining District in coordination, we've identified plenty of fraud in their so-called science. We have the proof. We put it in comments. I mean, it's there. I'm telling you things that we've done and proven and in the public record. So it's so beyond a question. I just tell it to you to assure you, when you decide to take up an issue that is a principle wrong that you need to make right, you're going to have plenty of help. It's there to stop. And they're waiting for you too, because you got everything until you can't keep it, and they're going to be there to take it from you. That was the way this place was set up. That's not, in my mind, peace and tranquility, folks. I don't care what the preamble says. And so there's a truth in this. So the truth is, I've said it. Science is prostrate before the truth. It is a fraud, an ongoing fraud. It's very hard to find real scientists. They're there, but they're deluded too, in a way that we look at. They're being ostracized and denied their input. Remember, we heard in Bush's time they said that they were going to constrain all scientific papers had to go through the White House. Wow. Think about that, folks. Think about this political policy. It's political police, military police. Military. That's the world. That's the reality. And I think if you see it different, you're going to short yourself. You're going to not do and think about things that you need to do and think about. If you choose to be some kind of a resistance to push this thing back out. I really have a hard time looking around and understand how people are doing it, watch the misery that's going on, all because a few people can make some emails to each other and destroy nations. And don't forget, IMF, that's the United States as well, so don't go too far about thinking that there's not going to be some correlation as well. It gets deeper too. I can't even get to it. Please don't shoot me. Body cam shows innocent unarmed dad killed by a cop begging for his life. These military execution squads, folks, I told you here years ago, and I said it last week, and it's just coming more prevalent. It's going to be a time you can't even give up. I told you this. I just saw it coming. I saw it. The writing is on the wall. Their policies, what they do, what the loopholes they give themselves. The big one we know we hear is, oh, I was feared for my life, and they get to now execute you. That's a license to execute. So here we have a story. Please don't shoot me. This is on a body cam. The guy says, please don't shoot me. If I understand how the guy's actually crawling on his hands and knees, complying with the cop. He shows innocent, unarmed dad killed by a cop begging for his life. An innocent man. He couldn't even comply. And, I just don't know what more to say. You can't be all right with that, folks. And how do we start to address this? It's in those policies. It's in the so-called laws that the legislature that doesn't want to that wants to give you give license for this kind of execution without remedy. You can't be all right with that to the point you're silent. Otherwise, you're agreeing with this. You can't be all right with the silence of a law enforcement officer not enforcing the law equally on everybody. And I say it that way because that's what I'm up against right now with some people that we're working up. We're finding, I told you, it's not hard to find the criminals in office. They're everywhere. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know whether, I'm not disappointed anymore to find that there are criminals in the office. I just know that they're there. And we now pursue, and we make a record right now in developing the chain of oppression, the chain of criminality, the chain of organized crime that we're up against that would allow this kind of thing to be an immunity to the one who executed an innocent man. You can't be all right with this. I don't have all the answers on how to best do that. I know I'm following a path to expose it and get it at least in the public's eye that what's being purported as a lawful government is not. What asks you for money in your life from property taxes or sales taxes or taxes or whatever imposition, fees, fines, and exactions of every kind is going to a criminal conspiracy against you. You can't remain silent without agreeing with that. I see this story. I don't even know what am I going to say? A cop kills an innocent man while he's crawling on his hands. He can't even comply and give up. I told you this day was coming. I really didn't want to see it. I really didn't want to believe I would tell you that. And I really didn't believe it would happen really quite this quickly. Research. TV is intellectually and socially dumbing down your children. I thought I had to laugh. I'm going to say, how about you, folks? Do you think it's only your children? A very interesting study here, talking about being incapable of responding to these military execution squads. They don't even give you the ability inside. You are conditioned already. And I look up and I see you want to talk about asking, isn't voting agreeing with it too? Sure. It's a franchise on top of that. Remember, see, I don't know if people really listen to what I'm saying. Not directed at Wanna Taco, but voting is agreeing with that system. It's agreeing with the whole franchise. And it's agreeing that you're not only but a voter, not an elector. You are then also signing an application and registering yourself as this particular status. So not only is it agreeing, you're changing your jurisdiction as well. So there's a whole lot behind a lot of this, actually. We go talk about some of this stuff. So thank you, Want to Talk. No, that's important. I mean, this is how we do it. We apply into these things that are no good. And we do it probably because of this stuff. This research is now finding out TV is intellectually and socially dumbing down young children. It's doing you too, folks. This is not just young children. They make it sound like if you take it away from your kids, that you aren't affected. I mean, I guess I just don't have a lot of time here on all this, but I just wonder how much I should read. I really think you need to see the black and white. I mean, this is really critical. The more I talk with people that I help and my colleagues and we work this stuff through and then they're helping other people, having everyone read the stuff for themselves has become like the definition thing you need to do. There is no way to convey how powerful when you see an authority, a source document of originating material, how that impacts you to redefine for you the imperative of it. You're not socially dumbed down by the conditioning that's been put into you. It actually displaces that. You have to get those words in your eyes almost like a mass of things. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it has to fill your mind with something and displace what you've been programmed with. The research is here, folks. They've been doing this for decades. TV intellectually and socially dumbing down children. This is preparing you. You don't even know you're incapable. I mean, if I have anything to tell you, we're clueless to a lot of this. We don't even know our failings, our frailties. We have no clue. And then when we read it, we question ourselves. That's how bad it is. And then they always have the ultimate power. Well, who are you? You're not a position of an authority. Then you look around, well, wait a minute, you aren't either. The fact is, I can see the law, black and white, tells me you're a criminal. Wait a minute, hold the horses, stop the bus. Get off this little yellow bus now. And then they try to run you over with it. which is why you don't want to be deer in the headlights in the road when that yellow bus you get off of goes down the road trying to get away from you. And it's up to you to make flat tires and change this thing and get everyone else off that bus because they're under the same disabilities. It's you right now, folks. It's me. I mean, it's to some level, it's me. I don't see. Sometimes I may not see stuff. I don't know what I don't see. I can tell you, I see a whole lot more. And I don't just chat on. I mean, how many times do you see me come in and just chat away and just talk about all kinds of stuff? There's some stuff I'll do. Sometimes I need a little break, but it's really rare. I think it's really rare. And a lot of it's just I'm just trying to get to the next thing. And what do some people think about this? And what about that? And what about this condition? And, and then technical things and Real Liberty Media and, Grimner and Cowboy Tech, great resources to go to. And I've done it. I can do it. I just don't have the time to go research out some of the things. It's better just to ask someone who's done it. We have all that to help each other with. But just to come in and berate each other on the better politician that's running in this reality show called the Candidates on Debate, please, that's just not what we're at. We're talking and speaking through, I don't know however critically minded we think we are speaking through a condition of social and intellectual dumbing down. I'm telling you, that's what happens. And it's partly why I look around and I see it. I see it in how people respond. We're all stuck in our habitual way. It takes a little bit. I think when I was telling you about my mind literally feeling like it's twisting in my brain, inside my skull, my brain twisted inside my skull, I think you're shaking off this stuff. You have to do that. That's another do. Can I say it again? Research. TV is intellectually and socially dumbing down your young children. And so what do? They go after smart things, don't they? And then they have social engineering and social media. You understand that they're focused on exactly where they're attacking you the whole time. They go for smart, claiming that you're not so smart, and you aren't because you've been programmed to be pretty dumb. You're not so that's why what I tell you, that intellectually, they go smart. I say go intellectual, didn't I? Because they've taken that away from you. It's not smart to be not intellectual. And I don't mean that in the frivolous academic way. They have a monopoly on smart, S-M-A-R-T. That's what the future plan works on. You plug yourself into that. They set you up to plug yourself into it. We are about helpless against it. And at some point when I say that, I don't even know how the heck I escaped it, folks. Maybe it was that I really believe the utopia that we had this difference in the United States of America, different than the world, and we had this thing, even though we had our troubles, you look past it, that's us. And then one day I get the rose-colored glasses slapped from my face, and I go, wait a minute. That's the only distinction here. And then I had a question. And I guess I'm kind of inquisitive. I'm kind of a scientist that way. Oh, wow, the hypothesis doesn't meet the evidence. Let's go reassess what we have and let's make a new hypothesis. This is kind of what I'm saying. Look at what the world hands you, put it in a list of itemized things, and then go apply it to some theory out there, some philosophy. You'll find it. It's not the United States of America as a Republican form of government anymore. And so you have to identify what it is, and don't lie to yourself about the truth of that. It's pretty devastating. Like I said, and you're not going to look local to you. You got to go international law. We're talking into the international interference pattern. So, with all this dumbing down that's going on, and we know that the method of TV is not but one way they do it. We talked about the vaccine fraud before, and them doing false. We're going to teach a lesson to all the people who are making fraud that get caught, not to make falsified data. Well, the caveat that everyone listens to is the get caught part. So you get all the real smart people, they're not going to get caught. Doesn't mean they're going to stop the fraud. But despite all this evidence and the harm that the vaccines go, and you see the global control and the intent to harm you and get you under control, keep you from having the ability to escape by controlling your brain or your spirit, or the functions of your body, so you're focused on that instead of maybe other things. Uganda's going to start jailing parents who don't vaccinate their kids. Really, do I have to read the stories, folks? I mean, this is just what what kind of tyranny are we seeing coming? It's there. They say, oh, that's not here. Well, yes, it is. They're kind of outlining all that. They're in the same thing in California, aren't they? Just a little bit different. Just a slight bit different. But if you don't vaccinate your little goats, your kids, as the custodian agent of those of the ward of the state, the kid, the little goat, the little animal, little baby animal needing care, you're going to be put in jail now. So who owns the property of the kid? Is that any different than anywhere else in the world that's being treated? No. So here's the heads up, I guess, to me. Here's the heads up. It's coming, folks. They mean business. Doctors name Monsanto's larvicide as cause of Brazilian microcephaly outbreak. This is down now in Argentina, confirming the prior report that we did, that the larvicide that you see in the videos that they're spraying everywhere to fight the Zika is actually the causation for this. Do I agree completely with this? Well, actually, no. I don't know what to agree with. I'm not sitting down there doing the tests. But we do have another group of doctors speaking up and says it's not the mosquito, and it's really not anything else you've been told. Well, that certainly means it's not malnutrition. Apparently this pesticide has been shown to have a direct causation by doctors that are even outside that government. So, word of advice here, take it or leave it. If they're doing it on that one, they're doing it on others. They're not doing it out there. They're doing it right here in your own backyard, wherever your backyard is. And so I want to get back to, if they're doing this intelligence controlling and the social controlling, and they're vaccinating you and they're controlling your abilities, your physical ability to do things, to think certain ways, to feel certain ways. I'm going to go back to this other story that I read last as I broke away. Can a 3-year-old represent herself in immigration court? The bar member judge says he thinks so, because he can take and train that little kid, that little goat, that's vaccinated and been intellectually stunted, and get the right answers been trained into them in some time. It takes a long time, he says. But in fact, they're allowing this infantile mentality to have capacity. Is the same thing I told you last week, that you are being trained the same way. You are this infantile mentality that this judge imposes upon that which is you. This incapacity is put on you, projected on you, as something he can train you into. This story about this 3-year-old thing is really a fascinating key and core. Really, you need to kind of look at this, get the download, and really look at what they're saying, what this means, and how you see all this other stuff that's imposed upon you. People with capacity think you have a knowledge, think you know what's going on. But you only look with your eyes, but your eyes cannot actually see. You hear with your ears, but your ears don't actually hear. And then they go into this brain that wants to make noise about it. Reduced into this one story, a judge saying someone of a 3 and 4-year-old capacity, mentality, and awareness has capacity enough to make decisions in a legal consequence, is your future. This is where it's the future we want. It's the one they planned. The future they plan is where this is. They have a lot of us there now. It's not obvious. But here's, again, the evidence of it's going on and on and on and on. Now, move over a little bit more. Now, that's all the stuff that they've been doing to us, is they get us as little kids. They want to, our formative years, they tell us all this stuff. You don't realize, you think you grow up, you think you growed up and you've escaped it. You haven't. I mean, I had to have those rose-colored glasses slapped for my face if you haven't figured that one out, folks. That had to happen. It didn't happen on its own. I didn't see it on its own. I had to have a trauma happen, and I had to be able to then have the sense to respond to it. It didn't come naturally. So if you don't have someone like myself or someone near to me in my message, or some example in the world to kind of shake you up a bit and cause an attention, bring you from no question, no clue, to some clue. Oh, wait a minute. And bring that question. The why is the important one. Wait, why? Why'd you do that? Why did that happen? And then really have an intention to follow and track that down and then get lost in it. It gets past us. And so that you have to be cognizant. That's what's going on. That's one of your defects. While you're listening to me, I see so many people make comments, and then it's like I wonder, are they even my listeners? Are you even listening? I hear comments coming. I said I've answered all that. I've talked about those things. I've mentioned that there's a way to analyze or the fact or non-existence or existence of certain things that prove certain other things. And people talk like I've never said it before. That's a little disheartening, but that's us. It's like our ADHD society. I see it now. I mean, it's a little harsh, but it's a little hard to realize, but that's what we're dealing with. It's like having to ask someone the same question 3 times until they finally see what you're asking, the question they're asking, and get out of what they thought you want. How many times have I looked on for technical advice for computers, and somebody asks a simple question, and all these know-it-all gurus step in and chastise the question and then come and tell them what the guy doesn't want to know. I said, did you even read the question? It seems simple enough. Or the guys that don't have the answer say, oh, that's not the right question. Where did that come from? That's so foreign and alien to me, I don't even know. That's why I don't get into communicating on the internet so much. Not that I have a ton of time. But how many times evidences do you see that it's there, it's who we are anymore? We have to get beyond that. We have to know it's there to have to get beyond. So as we move over to the plunderers in the military industrial complex called government and the police state and these police that protect and serve. Remember, protect is to protect the administration underneath the tendency of the hostile army, and to serve is to serve you the process to bring you into be able to protect. They kind of overblow it. We have a story now, Florida, one step closer to ending policing for profit. So what I wanted to point out here is another story about SWAT raids, small organic garden confiscates blueberries. And there was another story here, man harassed and fined for planting vegetables in his own garden. These are measures of takings that are theft by extortion. That here is an answer, Florida, the state can make a law to stop it. And I guess that's the only point I wanted to make. For those of you who have states that are allowing this policing for profit confiscation without actual constitutional thing, that's evidence that you live in a military occupation, and the state can stop it. It's their own occupation being told, stand down. This is one of the methods you have to embrace in order to stop this right now. I don't know what else to say about that, and it's not so easy. But again, this is like the policy constraint thing. If you want cops to have to be following a different policy, you have to get it written so they can't claim they didn't know. So Florida steps up and says, no, your forfeiture is way too much. It's gone way beyond, and here's some constraints. For those of you that want to do that in your state, maybe go to Florida, see what they have, analyze that very carefully. I noticed some things I didn't like too much about what they're doing. But to analyze it, maybe you support that to your representative. Do something better than sit there and be the next guy they come and beat down and steal all your stuff. As someone who didn't do anything and didn't even know about it, folks. This is how bad this has got. This is the military consequence. You find that in the Lieber Code. Take the elements you see in reality, not what the pamphlet you flip around that says it's got a constitution. Take the real elements going on in your life and apply them to some philosophy, and you'll be able to do so, and you tell me which one it is. And I will be surprised if it isn't this occupied force international law nonsense. And we continue to allow it. So, thank you very much for tuning in today, and hopefully I'll have to check. I'm a little leery about what happened here about the audio, but appreciate you tuning in, and thank you for thank you to RLM, RealLibertyMedia.com, and Grimner and all the work he does in the servers, and then Freedoms Network, new social network. Please go sign up there. A lot of interesting things going on. They're putting a lot of work to get that up as the surrogate to, as the following of World Truth. And I would tell you, anybody gets an email from World Truth, do not answer that. That's not really, they're not telling you a lot of the truth there. It's not under new management. There's some skullduggery there. Be very careful. But Freedoms Network, thank you very much for the work you do there, and Grimner and Bo Diddy, and UCY.TV and Jules, thank you very much, and all you terrestrial broadcasters, I do appreciate you carry the broadcast. And folks, behind the Woodshed, you can reach me at markonthebeast.yahoo.com for any content contributions, any suggestions, any of that stuff, and pass out the podcast. See if we can get this thing simulcast and put the Woodshed all over the globe if we can, and other websites simulcasting at the same time, or they can pick up the podcast from Real Liberty Media. So thank you. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week. Tech Diffs and nature willing. Take care.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the Woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
Opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.